I
Yeah,
wanted to ask
exactly.
you earlier in the conversation, and we got sidetracked many times, which is great. But I was curious to know.
Welcome to the
You
Talk
started,
Louder podcast.
yeah,
Yeah,
you,
right. Yeah.
you started, you started the band. You started Metal Church basically in San Francisco, and then
Right.
took it to Aberdeen. And my question to you is, what was the incentive to do that? Because it seems to me as a young
Backwards.
yeah, as a young rock band, it seems you'd have more opportunities in San Francisco than Aberdeen, especially at that time. So
Right.
what's the
Well,
incentive?
what it was, I was in my first real band, which was a punk rock band called The Lude. We were in Seattle. And so it's first generation punk. We relocated to San Francisco. Then after about a year and a half or so playing that scene, I kind of felt like, I think I love this punk thing and everything, but at that point it started getting a little tired and I just didn't really see much happening future wise with it. And then simultaneously, all of a sudden you hear these rumblings from England about the new Wubbum, the new wave, and Motorhead and Iron Maiden and, Saxon and all. It's like, ooh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Suddenly it was the punk attitude, the aggression, but musicality and things like, oh, I'm in. So
Yeah.
I left the Lude and started putting Metal Church together in San Francisco. But everybody was still punk rock and new wave and didn't want to have anything to do with metal. So I had all the friends that I was in bands with in high school, like Kirk Arrington. We were basically stepbrothers. I went back up there and put it together with guys that I knew from the small town that I grew up in.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so it is backwards, but that's why we came out of Aberdeen, because I like, okay, I know a drummer up there, and then I ran into Duke, and through Kirk, he's a bass player, and then Craig Wells, he was a guitar player in another band, in the high school, and then he knew Dave from Yakima, and so I knew, and there wasn't a lot of drugs going on. So there was a lot of drugs and things like that going on in the punk rock scene, and trying to put a new band together with people that weren't strung out on anything. It was too difficult. So I knew people there, So.
Did you know Duff McKagan from the Seattle punk rock scene?
No, he came into it a little after we had left.
Okay.
But he was apparently, from what I understand, I mean, I've met Duff. From what I understand, he was knew of the Lude and all that kind of stuff, because we were kind of one of the first bands. There was a punk rock scene in Seattle, which was a lot of fun then. But
and what year was that? Was it late
79?
Yeah,
79.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was 80. You were in San Francisco. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I just was thumbing through a little bit, not to be rude or anything, but I couldn't stop. And you were like off Market Street or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
right downtown.
And Ron Quintana was a big player with you and the guys you were kind of
there was
living with, which is where the name Metal Church comes from. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. There was Ron Quintana and a couple other people. We were like the few metal kids in the city. There was probably more metal going on out in the suburbs and stuff like that, but in the city itself, there was Ron Quintana and a few other people I'm thinking of, but that's where I met Lars. Yeah. And because he had come over from Denmark to visit his dad, who was in San Francisco at the time.
Okay.
So we used to party at the apartment I had, and that's where we used to start calling it the Metal Church, which was the apartment I had with two other people, and we would, get drunk and party all night and listen to all these import metal records. That's where and then people started calling the band that, and that's where the name came from.
Yeah. But you like some of the characters were members of Anvil Chorus and Heathen and all of that Bay Area early metal that was heavily influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yep.
Which ultimately was pre-thrash.
Yep.
That came after Lars met James in L.A.
Right.
And then ended up coming back. Yeah, ended up coming back. That's like a rubber band kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like Aberdeen, SF, Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And Lars comes over. He's like SF, LA.
Yeah.
SF. Exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it was all incestuous and everybody knew everybody and kind of a thing. Yeah.
And now out of those cats, the only one that still lives there is probably Ron.
Probably. I think he probably lives over in the East Bay and, probably doesn't live in the city anymore.
No, so. I'm sure.
Yeah. I think he lives in like out by Walnut Creek or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, it's pretty nice out there, actually.
It's very nice out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned obviously we've talked a little bit about Lars Ulrich and you toured with Metallica, and I think I read somewhere at one point that the album, the Metal Church record, The Dark, was dedicated to Cliff Burton. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I think it might say something on there about that because he died just about that time that album was coming out.
Yeah, I looked on my record and I couldn't find any. That's why I'm asking you, because I didn't see anything.
I don't really remember. I think we may have wanted to or something like that. I think I don't know if things had already been pressed at that point.
Yeah.
But that's when they had asked us to go on the road with them, and being on the same label and everything was, was very convenient. But then we heard about the accident and that happened, and then it was postponed for a bit, but we still went out. So
what do you remember about Cliff specifically?
I was going to say, do you remember where, and to add to that, do you remember where you were when you heard about the accident?
Yeah. We never toured with them or really did anything with them when Cliff was in the band. This was all afterwards when they got Jason.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I had met Cliff when he was in a band called Trauma.
Yeah.
I remembered that. And I had, kind of when we did, I think the only thing we did with them, we played a New Year's Eve show at the San Francisco Civic. We played with Megadeth opened. It was us and Exodus and Metallica. And Cliff was still in the band then. And we had chatted a little bit, but we didn't really know him. But I had, we'd been in the same scene, so to speak. So, but then I had went back up. And then I remember we were sitting around probably Duke and Dave's apartment they were sharing at the time with our manager from Concrete. And we were talking about what we were going to do in the album coming out, et cetera, et cetera. And he got the call.
Oh, shit.
So we were all sitting around and we just went, it was like, what?
Yeah.
And then, we didn't know if anybody else had gotten hurt or killed or anything either. So, then obviously the information started rolling. But yeah. So it was pretty scary, you think about that, because, I've heard other people say, when you're on tour, and I'm sure you feel like you're pirates and you're indestructible and nothing can get you. And, I'm with my guys and my gang, but you're pretty vulnerable out there if you don't have, people that have their shit together.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Interesting. That's another one of those things that I think is
delicate.
And I think that's another one of those things that people don't really consider, especially when you're 20, 25 years old. You think you're invincible, and then here's one of the hazards of the business that you never even thought of.
Right.
It's hitting you right in the face. And then you got to think about your own safety. You're thinking, well, this is what I do for a living. What if I'm next? I mean,
do I really want to go put myself in that position?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
It was tough, man.
Yeah.
Tell us about the timeline for your next album, because I know two people in this room that can't wait to hear it. Because
the next Metal Church, Metal Church,
the next Metal Church record. Yeah.
At this point, I have no idea. No idea. Right now, I'm on hiatus from the Metal Church thing and really putting my energies into the new Hall of Flame record because I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
So it's time for me to take a breath and kind of, hey, I'm going to go over here for a little while. Because and then if it's time to do a new Metal Church record down the road, I'll be refreshed and not burnt out on metal. So, I'm just looking forward to the Hall of Flame record coming out because I'm really curious to see how it's received, So I'm excited about that. And the new Presto album, I'm really excited about, but that's another, that's a complete other genre. I like doing other things to see if I can, not that I think I can do it. I also have a solo record that's going to be coming out called Brainchild that I did a couple years ago. That's going to be coming out where I just did everything just to see if I could do it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's on Rat Pack Records.
They'll be on Rat Pack. I only work with Rat Pack because it's like a record company that does a great job. And if there's a problem, I can call them up. Joe and everybody there, they're just, it's like, if it wasn't for Rat Pack, I don't know if I'd still be in the biz, because it's the perfect scenario for me because they do a great job and it's not a big company and they had our back, You know, they really went the extra mile, and they do a great job, and they'll pick up the phone. And if there's a problem, you deal with it just like a friend.
Do they have offices in the States?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's based out of New Hampshire. Yeah.
Oh, far out. I didn't know that. For some reason, I thought it was a Euro label. I didn't know.
No.
Okay.
No, we'll license it to a Euro label, you know, but it's the perfect scenario for me. You know, I can make records and go, here, put this out. Okay.
Well, they've done a great job. I know they put out Todd's solo stuff as well. So
yep.